to have you with us. We are trying to get our guest, Stephen Hales, and with us real quick. There he is.
Hey, how are you?
What's up, Steve? How you doing, man?
Good, doing great.
You hear me okay?
Oh yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yes, sounds good to me, man. Sounds really good. Thanks for joining us today. I know we're going to have a bunch of people logging on to hear what you have to say about the Washington, D.C. DMV area regarding real estate, so we'll give it a minute for people to
Yeah, no
join on.
worries.
Yeah. How's everything going with you? I think the last time I saw you, you and your son were here in LA and he had a sports event, right?
Yeah, we were knee deep in club volleyball back then, and he's gone on to play. He's actually playing in college now. He went to BYU for school, and he's playing volleyball there. So I actually was down your way. I should have reached out because we played UCLA last spring in Poly Pavilion, which was pretty cool. So I flew out for that. It was over our spring break, which was kind of fun to have
Oh,
that experience.
I think you actually did reach out to me, and I think I gave you guys some recs on stuff because I know maybe
Oh,
about
that's
two
right.
years ago, yeah, you and your son came
Yeah,
here and we did a little lunch real quick, and that was the last time I saw you.
yeah, that was great. So yeah, we were. In fact, the the tournament was SoCal Cup, it's called, and it was at the convention center, which I know is close to your office. In fact, our hotel. Going back to our hotel, I remember walking by your office.
Yeah.
When we were there. So that I've been out there actually several times. I think three times since 2 times since I met up with you that first time. But Yeah, it's funny those tournaments, as anyone with kids can attest with club sports. It's like you go to these cities, but unfortunately, you don't often like get to see everything in the city because you're like stuck in this convention center all weekend. So you don't always get to see stuff. But yeah, it's my other son played last year. My daughter's playing now, so we've kind of become a volleyball family. I play basketball myself, but volleyball is getting very popular, and certainly in California, it's definitely very popular out there.
Yeah, certainly. No, we got the weather for it, that's for sure. Well, that's
Yeah,
good, man. I'm glad to hear that he's progressed and is playing at the college level now. BYU, good school, very,
yeah,
very notable. So, congratulations. You guys must be proud, man.
yeah.
Um,
He's We're proud. He's six. He's grown too. I think since I saw you last, he's 6'8" now. So that's like, I mean, I'm 6'2", but you've seen me. I'm not that tall. My wife's like 5'11". She's pretty tall, but not like crazy tall. And we have this kid who's like 6'8", which is kind of wild. But um, yeah.
Something
So
in that
anyway,
DMV water, man. He just sprouting taller and taller, you know?
probably.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, listen, Steve, I know that you're a busy guy. You got a lot of things going on. Why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself to some of the people who are watching right now, and maybe who are going to watch the recording later? Tell them who you are, what you do, where you
Yeah.
serve, years in the business, all that good stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, Steve Hales is my name. I've been in real estate for 23 years. I've been in the Berkshire Hathaway network. I hit 10 years actually coming up this October, which is kind of exciting. Um, and I moved out here in 1999 after graduated from college. I lived overseas for a little while. I did an internship at NATO headquarters in Belgium for a year, and then moved here. And I thought I was going to work on Capitol Hill or work for the State Department. And I actually went back to grad school here for international relations and economics, and Johns Hopkins SICE, the School of Advanced International Studies. And while I was in grad school, I got my real estate license because I was like, all right, I've taken on all this debt. I got to make some money, while I'm in school. And I had a
Yeah.
lot of friends. I was late 20s at the time, and I had a lot of friends who were thinking about buying condos, kind of their first place. And so, as is often the case with new agents, a lot of times you work the buy side probably more than the list side initially, just kind of the way these things go. And so I helped a ton of people buy houses, a lot of my friends, and that network kind of grew as from grad school. I've helped a lot of folks that end up working for DoD or State Department or intelligence agencies, and so they go overseas and they oftentimes want to have a base here in the DC area. So I'll help them buy a condo or a house. And then that's the kind of their base that they come back to when they're between assignments. And so my market, it's not the only market I work in, but that's a good portion of my business, and it always has been. And it certainly is something that is maybe a little bit unique to DC because there is so much government work here and
Yeah.
diplomatic work as well. So, but I'm licensed in DC, Maryland, Virginia. Vic, you refer to it as the DMV, which is what we call it out here. So you must be familiar with it, but it does confuse a lot of people because when they hear DMV, they think motor vehicles or something, right? But
Absolutely.
it's
One of my really close friends lives in Maryland, and I think we missed each other when I was out in the DMV area a few years ago, and he told me the same thing. I live here in DMV. I'm like, yeah, everybody lives in DMV because you're waiting at the line. You might as well, pitch a tent, have a nap. But he was like, no, no, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. It's
No.
all really
Well,
close together.
Delaware, you could do Delaware, but the D actually is for the
Oh,
district. Yeah, it's
oh,
District of Columbia. But there is another phrase they call Delmarva, which is Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. But yeah, so generally though people look at it as DC. The D part is
okay.
DC.
So District of Columbia, Maryland, Virginia, and then what's the last one there?
Delaware, but that's like
Del-
kind of separate. That's a little further up, and people often will from here go there on the weekends to the beaches, Rehoboth Beach, Bethany Beach, that kind of thing.
okay.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm licensed in all three. It is a little bit unique, I think, for a major metro area to have three separate jurisdictions, and you actually do have to be licensed in all three to work in all three. There is some reciprocity there that makes it a little bit easier to do that. But for instance, Maryland and DC are very you may ask me this question later, but kind of what's unique about each place. DC and Maryland are very much they're what's called disclosure states, like most states are. I'm sure California is this way, where when you sell, you have a long list of like, oh yeah, this is everything I know about the property, and you have
Yeah.
to disclose those things to a prospective buyer. Virginia is what's called a buyer beware state, or caveat emptor, which just means that sellers can't withhold material facts or conceal material facts, but if they repaired a roof, say, 3 years ago, and it hasn't leaked since, they don't have to disclose that to you that the roof leaked at one point. So it's a little bit of a different um, mindset with Virginia as opposed to Maryland and DC. It's pretty similar, but mainly it's because of English property laws is the basis for Virginia law, and so that's very favorable to landowners. So that's really kind of how it came to be like that, I think.
Wow, that's
Um,
different. So they're still
yeah,
they're still using a framework for properties based on England. That's
yeah,
what I'm
it's
hearing.
it's
Wow.
very it's very landlord friendly in Virginia relative to DC or Maryland. I used to own rental properties in DC. I don't anymore, partially because it got kind of complicated, but also because some of the rules there are a little bit tricky. It's some of them are good. Some people would argue some of the rules are good. Like for instance, if you're a landlord and you want to sell the unit, you actually have to offer it to sit for sale to the tenant first in
Hmm.
DC. That's a rule, and maybe you have that in California as well. It's not
We
all
don't
bad.
have
It
that
just sort
here.
of creates some challenges there.
It's funny that you're mentioning tenant landlord law, and it seems like in two of the three locations for DMV, it's probably a little bit more favorable to tenants
Yes.
rather than landlords. And there's two sides to that, right? If you're a renter, you want to be in DC
Yeah.
and Maryland.
Yeah.
If you're a landlord, you want to be in Virginia.
Yeah.
It makes a difference, guys and girls, when you're watching this, where do you invest your money at? Because all these rules make a significant difference in your landlord business and even as a tenant, right? So I'm glad
Yeah.
we're here to talk about that, Steve.
Yeah.
I know you service the three different markets. Um, can you give me an idea what the price point is at each market, whether it's DC, Maryland, or Virginia, the areas that you serve?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good question. Like, so I live near Old Town Alexandria. That's the historic district. So that has some uniqueness to it, just by nature of it being historic. I don't live like right in the district, but I am in that zip code. I'm just a mile up the road from there. But you just say like an average, say, let's say 1,000 square foot, two bed, two bath condo in my market in Alexandria, run you between 500 and $700,000, probably closer to the $700,000 range actually now. Single family home. I'm just under contract with someone about 2 miles up the road in a little bit different neighborhood, kind of a starter home neighborhood, but they're getting a single family home that's about I would say 1,000 square feet on the upper, and then maybe 1,000 basement, and they're getting it for 700,000. But I would say that's the lowest you're going to find a single family home in my area. Like townhouses that are the same size or maybe slightly larger will run you more than that, 750, 850. Single family home in my neighborhood would run probably one over a million, between a million and 2 million would be the single family, and these are houses that are 2,000 to 3,500 square feet. Like not huge, they're nothing crazy, but well located. But yeah, it's gotten expensive for single family homes, and I would say maybe something that might be a little bit unique to some of your other markets in DC is the starter home market here really is condos or maybe townhouses.
Of course.
There's a lot of we go vertical here instead of like widthwise as far as
Yeah.
the building goes.
In LA, we're
Uh,
a sprawl, right? Let me
yeah,
let me ask you this. You mentioned about 750 for the low end SFRs. Like something that caught my attention, and not a lot of people have this, especially on the West Coast. You said the word basement, right? We don't have that here in Los Angeles. We don't have that
yeah.
really in a lot of the Bay Area locations too. Maybe in the city, San Francisco, you have it, but in the suburbs of the Bay Area, San Jose, San Ramon, things like that, we don't have that at all. So is a basement, the square footage of a basement, is it considered part of the living square footage, or is it something that's just kind of an extra bonus, not accounted towards the true characteristics of the property?
That's a great question. It kind of works both ways, honestly. So, in our MLS, they have what's called one of the fields is above grade square footage. So that's sort of delineated. And then they'll have below grade square footage, and then there's like a combo where they'll add those two together. It's certainly below grade is valued differently from an appraisal standpoint, is valued less. But I would say around here, basements are just I mean, people love basements here. It really just opens up a lot of options. I mean, if you go to DC, for instance, let's say Capitol Hill. That's where I used to own some rental properties up there. Capitol Hill up there, it's all condos and row houses basically. There's very few single family homes, and most of the row houses there have what they call English basements, which are basically a separate unit that is underneath the living unit. So they're sort of stacked on top of each other, and usually it's a half step, kind of a half staircase down to the basement. It's not usually not fully underground. It's about half underground, and nearly everyone rents those out. So I actually happen to know I sold one of these row houses, and I won't name the person, but it's a member of Congress, and I don't work with a ton of members of Congress, but this is one of those situations. And he bought one of these row houses, and he's actually renting his basement out to someone else. Another congressman is living in his basement. So and you see that pretty often up there on Capitol Hill. There's a lot of kind of funny arrangements with housing, but basements here are very useful. You'll see people sometimes turn them into separate apartments occasionally. That used to be frowned on, but now with just the cost of housing, a lot of localities are really revisiting their zoning, and they're
Yeah.
actually they're encouraging it now. Where before they maybe were, you kind of had to do it on the sly because it technically wasn't, didn't meet the zoning requirements. Where now it's like they want you to put an apartment in the basement.
Hey,
So
Steve,
it's weird to watch
can
the
you see
zoning
the
rules
Washington
change.
Post headline? See the Washington Post headline: Congressman rents out to another congressman. Illegal leasing. That'd be something that would make one of the news channels possibly, right? Um,
Yeah.
I know you're talking about dealing in your area. There's a lot of official federal business, and there's a lot of military. Now, every 2 years or so, we have a national primary, right? Not, what's it called? Midterm elections. Okay, so every 2 years or so, there is some turnover with people, Congress and people who work on their staff. Um, how does that affect you guys as real estate professionals in that marketplace?
It's a great question. It's interesting. I would say the presidential cycle is more impacted than the congressional cycle. So I would say the 4 year cycle probably more than the 2 year, because the 4 year affects the executive branch as well. So you've got people coming in to fill those positions. Um, there is some impact to the market, but it's not as much as you would think, because a lot of those people that work that say maybe we're in the Biden administration or something, they end up sticking around at a think tank or something in DC. So they don't necessarily leave. Some people do, there are some that do. But a lot of people are, they're federal employees, they're civil servants. So they're serving both administrations on both sides. So, certainly you have the appointed people that come in, the patronage jobs that come in, and there is some turnover, and that does affect the market a little bit. But I would say it gets absorbed. I mean, DC now is fairly, I would say, diversified on the job front. So it isn't just government jobs here. There's a pretty robust tech corridor. Tyson's Corner is 15 miles from DC, and that's got you know tons of Capital One's headquarters, Marriott, Hilton, all sorts of big time companies are located in Tyson's.
Yeah.
So like it's less. I would just say it's less impacted by that cycle, but it certainly does affect it.
Okay. Yeah, that's something unique to, your location. We don't have that anywhere else in the country, to the best of
Yeah,
my knowledge. I mean, state capitals have some turnover, but not like DC would, I would
yeah,
imagine.
yeah.
You're kind of touching on some good points there. You did talk about, the three different areas, DC, Maryland, and Virginia being disclosure states, right? Now, are you guys an attorney state? Do you guys use title? Do you guys escrow? How does it work in each of those three locations?
Yeah, so I'll just use Virginia for an example. The, we basically, the agents kind of run the deal through. We send the contract to title, and they run the title search, and there is an attorney that's there. But I know in
Okay.
like some markets, like New York City, from what I remember, they kind of once it's under contract, it kind of goes to the
Attorneys.
lawyers, and they kind of take
Yep.
take it over. That's not really the case here. The title companies play an important role. I'm trying to remember which jurisdictions have to have a lawyer. I think they all have to have a lawyer on staff or in the office, but they can work as title agents. They don't necessarily have to be a lawyer, but I think a lawyer has to be kind of manage the process, if that makes sense, and kind of sign off
Yeah.
on stuff. But you can
So
just be like
no,
a
no
title.
escrow. You guys do have title and no escrow. You guys use attorneys in lieu of escrow, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And then the disclosure. I know we talked about it briefly, but what's the time frame for a buyer to do their due diligence, conduct inspections before they can, try to negotiate repairs, or even if they can't negotiate repairs, decide, hey, this house isn't for me. Let me cancel the contract and get my deposit back. What's that time frame like for you guys over
Yeah,
there?
that's a great question because I'd be curious to hear your side as well. Ours is typically, I would say normally 7 days, 5 to 7 days. I think when the market's really hot, you'll see it like 2 or 3 days, and sometimes
Hmm.
I'll see. I had to do this about a month ago with a client. It was what they call the pre-offer inspection. So you literally do your inspection before you make the offer,
Hmm.
just to be competitive, so that you don't have a contingent contract at all, especially in a situation where there's competition going.
Yeah.
So in a more normal market, I would say 5 to 7 days. We've sort of had these interesting kind of evolutions as well, where, um, you know, I say normal market. I mean, I don't even know what that is anymore. But like a more normal market where maybe let's just say
Normal
buyers and
market.
sellers have like you know, equal leverage, then I would say 5 to 7 days is pretty normal. But things like we have what's called a void only option on our home inspection, where you have it contingent for a period of time, but then you only have the option to void or continue with the contract at the end. So you can get your deposit back, but it's you can't really negotiate
Oh, wow.
line item by line item.
That's
And so
different here. I haven't heard that about any other part of the country, a void option. Basically, you're saying that you got this, short window to do your inspections. Neither you're taking the house as is or you're not. There's no in between, no
yeah,
negotiation period.
I
Wow.
call it
That's
I call it the thumbs up, thumbs down option. So you're either
thumbs
going
up.
forward or you're not. Now the funny thing is that technically is what the contract says, but as you know, either people find loopholes, they find different things, and what often happens is, and it makes sense. Like if there's a big issue from the inspection, well, guess what? I'm going to go back, even if I have a void only option. I'm going to go back to the seller and say, hey, look, we found this item. We're going to void it unless you fix it. A lot of times sellers will still work with you because it's like they know, oh crap, now I've got to deal with that, or I didn't know that, and the next buyer is going to come along and say the same thing. And so sometimes that it works that way, but the reality is it's really dependent on how the market is moving at the time. Like, are you getting
Yeah.
multiple? Are you competing with someone? Is it multiple offers where you really have to, just sort of give your firstborn child to get the contract? You got to give away all your contingencies just to get in. That's unfortunate for buyers, and I would say that's kind of changed. It was that way a few years ago during COVID. It was certainly a seller's market, pretty much probably everywhere. It's
Yeah.
slowed down. It's definitely slowed down, but even in neighborhoods that are very popular, that where people want to be, you'll still see, uh, you know stuff move quickly and still competing offers and sometimes over asking price.
I think that's the same around the country. The best houses and the best neighborhoods listed at the best price are going to sell, for asking price, multiple offers, and sometimes even bidding wars. But those are subjective to what, the product is. So that's good to know. We're kind of on the same seller demand on the East Coast and the West
Yeah.
Coast. Let me ask you this, Steve. Your guys' typical open escrow to closing escrow period from the time the offer is accepted by
Yeah.
the seller to the time you can give possession to the buyer, what's your window there? For us in California, it's roughly 30 days. What's your
Yeah.
guys' window over there?
It's 30. It's 30 is the
30.
norm. Sometimes people will go or try and go quick with a lender at 21 days or something, but 30 is the norm. I would say, 8 times out of 10, I'm at about 30 days roughly. I see
Gotcha.
someone, Vic, I see someone's asking a question about the entrance to the basement on that English basement thing that I mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
And saying, is the entrance to the tenant basement the same? It is not. They would have their own entrance. And the District of Columbia usually requires that they have some sort of egress on the back as well. So usually there's some back entrance. So there's two ways out just for safety purposes.
Good to know. And that's a good question there, Alejandra. So thanks for asking that. So let me ask you this. We're almost out of time, but any tips for people who may be relocating from other parts of the country to the DMV area, things they need to be aware of? Schools, transfer process, anything like that for relocation clients?
Yeah, it's a great question. For relocation specifically, I would just say get your stuff together. Like, have the conversation with the lender so that you're already pre-approved, that you can show me a pre-approval letter. Because so many times this happens where people go look at houses and they say they've maybe talked to the lender, but they haven't really like actually, really been vetted, and really have that pre-approval letter. And so they go and we find a place and they want to put an offer and it turns out it's competitive and it's over the weekend and they have a hard time getting a hold of the lender, and next thing you know they're just not able to compete. And so I would just say, like, have your stuff together, get that loan pre-approval so that you're ready to go, because I attach, in our market, you probably do the same thing, I attach that lender letter with the offer saying, hey, this person is ready to go, they've been vetted,
Yep.
they're ready to go. And I would also just say, you know, just be prepared for stuff moving quickly. Like, if you see something that you like, we got to go. We got to get on it quick. You got to write an offer quick. Otherwise, you might get left behind. I've had clients. I told you about my overseas clients, military, State Department people. I literally have sold probably more than on one hand the number of times this has happened where I've sold a house sight unseen to a military or State Department client where they kind of already know the neighborhood they want to be in. We'll go do a
Yeah.
video tour or something, but they literally will go contract to close without ever setting foot in the house. And that's something that I'm not advising people to do by any stretch, but when you're competing with people like that, though, you need to be aware that sometimes, there's buyers out there that are very motivated, shall we say.
Yeah. Is there some type of like hold harmless agreement or something you put in front of your clients who haven't actually stepped foot on the property to protect
Usually
yourself
I
and
will,
yours?
and usually in those cases they'll have a friend or like a family member maybe go over to the place, and yeah, but usually I'll have something like that. And I frankly, maybe it's just the clientele. State Department people have pretty thick skin. They're used to living in certain countries, and so like for them, the house it's important. They want to be in the right schools and stuff, but the house, they're maybe a little bit more willing to take something that needs, that isn't like everything renovated and super high end,
Sure.
and just it's more functional for them.
Yeah, I understand. That makes sense, especially if they're relocating there for work, for jobs, right? So that makes sense. Steve, 24 hours in the DMV area. Where am I having breakfast? What am I going to do, to entertain
Yeah.
myself? Where am I having lunch? Where can I get a good cocktail and a dinner? What are your recommendations for people who've never been to the DMV area before?
Well, great question. So I'm a little bit Virginia centric because that's where I've been living near Old Town. I'm Old Town centric. Um, I think a great thing to do if you come to visit is to come into Old Town, walk around, check it out. You can rent bikes in Old Town, and there's the Mount Vernon Trail that runs along the Potomac River. It's a bike path, walking path that runs from Old Town down to George Washington's estate. And the estate is awesome as well. You can go walk the grounds. You can go. They
Yeah,
have a great museum there. That's an awesome thing to do for a few hours. It's a beautiful ride down along the river. It's quiet. Check out Old Town. My favorite place to eat there is a Lebanese place called the Pita House. It's been around a long time. They've got
Pita House.
fantastic hummus and pita, chicken shawarma, which is amazing. So I definitely recommend that. Look, we're a sports town here. I mean, a Nats game in the summertime is awesome. The Capitals are super popular for hockey. Go see Alex Ovechkin, who may not be around much longer. The Wizards are a little bit. The Commanders are kind of coming back,
Go
though. The
Kings.
Commanders are coming
Go
back.
Kings. But yeah, the Commanders, man, they got a great QB right now. That's going to be a great show. Some good
Yeah.
entertainment. Where you
And
having
then, sorry,
dinner?
Vic, of course, sorry, real quick, just along with other stuff to see, obviously, like it's the Smithsonian's and stuff downtown. I mean, you got to check those out. I think the Library of Congress is a little bit underrated. Like, that's a really cool place to go check out. Basically, every book that's ever been published, they have a copy of there, pretty much, or close to it. But it's just a
Wow.
beautiful building. They give tours of it. It's very cool. It's up by the Capitol, so I would recommend that as a tour. Also, a cool thing to do, rent segways or scooters, and you can just kind of go along the mall at nighttime and just go to the monuments. The Lincoln is awesome at night. The Jefferson, those are great places to go kind of after hours at night.
Yeah, I love the Lincoln Monument Memorial there. It was really nice. The
Yeah.
National Mall, when I had a chance to go visit, very cool to see and experience in real life. So I highly recommend it. Steve, where am I going to have a cocktail at nightcap? Where's the best place?
Dude, you're asking the wrong guy, man. 4 kids, and like I'm so removed from that. I mean, you go up to Adams Morgan, DuPont Circle in DC. There's plenty of night spots there to hit. Those are sort of the spots for people. Georgetown as well. I mean, Georgetown's got some nice spots as well.
Very cool, man. Well, we'll take all your recommendations, of course, for people watching this. Thanks so much to Steve Hales. If you know of anybody thinking about buying, selling, or relocating to the DMV area, District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia, right, Steve? This
Yep.
is your guy right here. His information is going to be at the bottom here in the captions. Steve, thanks so much for joining us today, man. I
Awesome.
appreciate your time. Of
Thanks for the opportunity, Vic. Good to see you, buddy. Have a good one.
course, guys. Take care
We'll see
now.
you.
Bye-bye,
Yeah, bye-bye.
everybody.